Hi, everybody. My name is Tami Zegarelli, and welcome to Beyond. This is our podcast, and this is my brother Mark over here. Hi, Mark. How you doing today?
I'm good, Tammy. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm introducing you as my brother because with the same last names, people could easily mistake us for being married, which we're not. So, um,
But we've
where
known
would you
each
like
other
to
a long
begin?
time. We've known each other a very long time.
Yeah, I've known you probably. I think I've known you my whole life. I know it
I
sounds
think.
silly, but I've known you. And
And you got back
I
from the hospital.
So yes, you remember me before I remember you. Let's put it that way. But what's fun about this podcast, doing this with you, is that I think this podcast started when I was about 12 and you were about 13 years old. We sort of had um, our first deep talk, and that deep talk has never ended in all these years. And now we just sort of want to share the conversation because we both really have wound up being coaches of sorts. You're an education coach, and that means a lot of things. You do a lot more. You're also an author, a speaker, so many things. And I'm a life coach, but I'd also do obviously executive coaching and that kind of thing. But so here we are
But
beyond.
by different paths, we sort of ended up in a similar sort of place, but very different paths, right? Very, very different paths.
Yeah, I think yours was somewhat more traditional in the sense
That's
that you went to high school, then went to college. Ironically, when we were younger, you would have think I would have had the, more traditional path.
that's right. I was more of the oddball. I would say when we were kids, I would certainly say I was the odd man out, and you were more like, doing the high school thing, the way that many people do it, right?
Right. And I absolutely turned out to be the wacko oddball in the family, which I am perfectly happy with. It serves my coaching well. As a matter of fact, sooner or later you will see this. So I have a magic wand. So
Oh, I love it.
there you go.
I love it. That's
Oh,
great.
you've never seen it?
I've never
It's
seen
to
your
bring
magic wand.
levity. Oh, my
Wonderful.
hero in life is Glinda. And of
Oh,
course
absolutely.
now with, starting from The Wizard of Oz, but now obviously with the new movie coming that came out this year, it's
I
back
haven't
in.
seen it yet. I've seen the show. I haven't Wicked I've seen, and I've obviously seen The Wizard of Oz because I think everybody literally in the whole world has practically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, the movie's great. So where would you like to start talking today?
I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, wait, so I'm interested because we both, when we talk to people who are interested in doing work with us, we'll always have that initial conversation. And I just wonder, I know what it looks like from my side, which I could talk about, but I'm interested in what that looks like from your side. Like when someone calls you either from a referral, hi Tammy, a friend of mine has been working with you and she's doing great, and I'm wanting to see if it's a fit for us. Where do you lead that conversation? Where does it go in general?
Yeah, and a lot of people have a certain like demographic, like I work with kids or I work with teenagers. I like to work with people who have been looking for the kind of coach where they want to put the work in, this sort of emotional, spiritual. They've read all the books, they've taken every course, they've been to, you know, retreats, they've done all these things, and yet there's still that something missing. And sort of where I fill in the blanks of that, which is where I lean towards, is teaching people, really teaching people the difference between how to live a life from your inner guidance, which some people sort of say, "What's my inner guidance?" And I say to them, "Well, are you living your life? Is your life going the way you want it to be?" And they're like, "Well, I wouldn't be calling if it was exactly the way I want it to be." So I said, "How about if I say, are you living your life from your inner critic?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I got it." And they know, and immediately people are so connected to the understanding of what their inner critic is.
Literally,
And
yes,
that's
that's very true. You can almost everybody I know says, "Oh yeah, I know who that is. I know exactly who that is." The voice in my head that tells me every single move I make is entirely wrong.
right. And it is what say is that we live sort of in a relationship with our inner critic for so long that we kind of think that negative voice in our head is ours. But if we can hear it, how can it be us?
Right.
So I think of the inner critic. My coaching is based on helping you to sort of pull apart your inner critic voice, quiet that down because it's screaming. It doesn't talk softly and it's not kind, to sort of beginning to get the seeds of listening, create a new listening, which sounds weird, right?
No, I get that. I get exactly what
It
you're saying.
to that very soft voice. And people say, well, I don't even know if I have an inner guidance. And I say, do you ever have a gut feeling? And they're like, yeah, all the time. I said, that's the beginnings of your inner guidance. Your inner guidance, everybody's inner guidance is fully in there, ready to be fully formed and lived into, right?
Right.
Just
Yes.
like, but this voice over here, just picking sides, and there's no reason for this, but your inner critic is yap, 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 yapping, screaming. And most of the time it's it's got our attention.
It's
And
funny when
because it
you
has our attention, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, the image that came to me, and I don't know why this came to me, is um, the inner critic is like the guy in the front seat. You're driving, right? You're driving. The inner critic is like the guy in the front seat who says, "You need to turn right here. You need to turn left," and like with great uh, authority, right? And no idea what's going on. And then the inner critic is like the little person in the back seat who's saying, they said we're supposed to find a
You
blue
mean your inner
church.
guidance?
Oh, wait, yes, yes. If I said that wrong, your inner guidance, the little person in the back seat saying, like, they said that we were supposed to find a blue church, and look, there's a blue church. I think we turned left there. And no, 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 no. Listen to me. Listen to me. That's the inner critic will continue to bluster and tell you, I know better. I know better. And meanwhile, that
And
quiet little voice.
most of the time, your inner critic, before you even get in the car, has kicked you out of the driver's seat and is driving. I always say your inner critic is driving the bus.
Absolutely. So that's even better, right? It's like, let me drive because I know how to drive better and I know where we're going.
Right. And your inner critic, the irony of this is that your inner guidance is saying in the back seat, did you punch in into the navigator where we're going? There's a really easy way to do this. And your inner critic is saying, I don't need that navigator. I don't need that navigator. I got this. I don't need that. So, and when that part of you is driving the bus, right?
Right.
Because your whole life is on that bus.
Right.
And somehow you relinquish the seat and you're listening to someone who's uninterested in learning something new. Like it takes two minutes to turn on the navigator,
Right.
right? And punch in the address, but it's always in a rush. You're not doing it right. I don't need that. I know better. Scream, 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 scream.
Right. And because it's screaming, you in your naivete, you think like, oh, he must know something. That guy must know. It wouldn't be screaming so loud if it didn't. Yeah. And meanwhile,
Yeah,
it doesn't know a lot.
yeah. And the thing about the inner critic is like someone will say, well, where does it come from?
Mhm.
And and that's a really good question because it's not from one place. It's from all of the negative things that have ever happened to you or anybody else is sort of in a collective consciousness that we live in the soup of. Sort of if it's the fish, it's their water. So we're
Absolutely.
living in the soup of this. We're living in the soup of this. And at the same time, we don't know that we're always reacting to something that is really external to us. So, and our inner guidance, right? Inner,
Hmm.
we feel like it's inner critics inside of us, but it's just a voice that we're picking up on because it comes from everywhere. It's the bully on the playground. It's the first time your best friend, said something, got nasty with you. It's when your mom knowingly or unknowingly ignored you. All of these things, we just build them up and we start creating stories and when we're little kids, we're all about our inner guidance. Like we're
Right.
looking towards our inner guidance, we're moving towards our inner guidance, we're coming from our inner guidance. And as we get older, we just do this.
And one of the things when you said the because what you reminded me of as you spoke about, all of this stuff coming in for kids and then eventually for adults because it keeps coming in. But it's really important to notice when you make the attribution of what it all means, because there's a little bit of volition, like choice, and you could be 7 years old and, objectively, you don't have a lot of power in the world. You're smaller than everybody else. You don't have a lot of cognition. But what you do have is the power to make a decision about what it means. And that's a very strong power. Like, for example, if your father is 10 minutes late picking you up at the mall, and on another day, what that means is your father's 10 minutes late picking you up. It means nothing more than what it means. But for whatever reason today, or maybe it happens a few times, whatever, all of a sudden it's like, nobody cares about me, right? And
Right.
you decide at age 7, nobody cares about me. And without even knowing it, now you're living a life for the next 30 years out of nobody cares about me. You're looking for evidence. Nobody cares about me. You're finding evidence. Nobody cares about me. You're meeting people and and then one day you realize, wait a minute, it turns out a lot of people care about me,
Right.
and then some don't. And I have a choice about whether that's true, but to notice that that little 7-year old inside of you made a big decision about a big world that they really didn't understand, and to be able to undo that and say, like, well, maybe I don't have to be that 7-year old anymore. That's a huge amount of power to have and then to erase.
Right. And to be making life altering decisions at that age, which we are doing without
Right,
guidance, right?
right.
So the two things can happen. It's like parents can teach their kids how to really, they're supposed to demonstrate. I always say the most important thing you can ever do for your kids is be working on yourself.
Mm,
And I mean in a
yes.
spiritual manner and in a self-regulation manner, like all, that's a buzzword, but it's one of the ones I love,
It's a
self-regulation, because
it's a
it
really
it's
good
a
one.
goodie.
It's a
It's a
goodie.
really good one.
It was new.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll let
No,
you
you
go.
didn't.
What I was going to say was I had heard, I think I came to you like a month ago, and a friend of mine who's a teacher, longtime teacher and administrator, now retired, said something about just brought the word dysregulated or dysregulating into the conversation. I said, what's that? It's a word I had not heard. And now it's a word I hear everywhere and I use all the
Everywhere.
time, everywhere, because that idea of, you mean I have a choice about how to react? Like, if something's going wrong in my life, I have a choice about, well, I could fall apart, I could throw something, I could scream, I could burst into tears, I could quit my job. There's a lot of things I could do. Or I could continue to regulate.
And that ties into two things. I'll talk about the first is that as an adult, like we're going to go back, we'll put a pin in the idea of like, what do we do with those kids that are making those decisions? Because we're along the line, we all made those decisions. And how can parents help that is put a pin in the idea of reframing situations.
Mhm.
If a parent is working on themselves and let's go for a second. If you're working on yourself and you're 10 minutes late to pick up your kid, you say, I am really sorry I'm late. Like that's a way where, and the kid said, well, like I was really scared and I'm standing out here in the dark. And it's like, wow, like mommy was really, like I got caught at a few lights, or, well, it's not the first time you've done it, mommy. Like what? And,
Mm,
I have like, my coaching involves having things that we can rely on, like teaching parents like how to start a sentence with a kid that is really upset. 5 things to say to your kids when you don't know what to say. I love you. I believe in you. I'm on your side. We're in this together. How can I help? So it's like,
yes.
I'm, mommy, like, I'm really upset. It's like, okay, we're in this together. Like, this was my mistake. You can always start a sentence with one of those things when you don't know what to say. And my coaching, I feel like, is the idea of getting ahead of what to do before the incidents happen. You're going to make mistakes as kids, as adults. You're going to have decisions put in front of you. And you brought up making decisions. And so much of what I have been working on in coaching with people is how do you make amazing decisions? And I have a method for that because when there's two decisions in front of you, right?
Yes.
And they both look okay, what do you do?
Right. What
So
do you do?
okay, so if you what I have learned for myself because I've struggled with decisions in my life is I'm a really big fan of I'm a fan of Esther Hicks. I'm a fan of so many people that are just do like they were out on the cutting edge of thought of the law of attraction and all these things so many years before any of us were. And they're trailblazers. And I would hear Esther say, lean towards feeling better. And I would think to myself, it's just so it's like I can't get myself like which feels better, this or this. And I thought to myself, it's for me, I had to get smaller and say, when I'm making a decision, does it feel even slightly better? If something is even start splitting hairs in your life, I'll say to people like, does it feel slightly better to take this job? Slightly worse to take this job? Or do you really genuinely not know whether you should take this job? And all three places to land are valid places to land, which means that if something feels slightly better, which I mean, I always use my famous
Hmm.
Sharpie pen. If you're facing in the direction you want to be going, even if it's slightly better, it's still better. If something feels slightly worse, even a little bit. And if you don't know, when in doubt, don't put a pause on what you're doing. And even so, we can even talk to kids that are much younger and say, you know, does it? I'm so mad at my friend, and I'm going to go there and yell at them, or they're going to get upset about something. Well, does it feel slightly better to do that? Well, I don't know. Like it gets them to start to understand where are their feelings coming from.
And I don't
Good
know
things.
is a thing. I don't know is a thing. Right? Like
I
when you
call it I don't
say,
know land.
I don't know, Len,
I
I found that really helpful because originally when we had this conversation, which we've been having for many, many years, I, you know, math guy, right? Education, math is right, so, I tend to think of things as well. There's negative, there's positive, and there's zero. And I was thinking of zero as completely in the middle. And then you talked me out of that because you said, but when something is even feels a little better, like for example, the example you gave was, if you say you're going to exercise today and you do one push-up, does that count? And it's like, yes, that absolutely counts. And but the zero is landing on I don't know. And I don't know is a real place. Like if you're talking to your kids and you're saying, you know, does it feel, how does that feel when you say that or when you do that? And they say, I don't know. We might be inclined to say, well, let's find out. But I don't know to validate, okay, so you don't know. So right now you're in a place of not knowing and you open that space and you validate it. And then a kid might say, like, well, actually, I don't know if it would feel really good. And then it's like, oh, so you do know, it turns out that next minute, next second, you do know.
Right. And it's
Potentially.
also the idea that it can be a moment. Like you putting a pause on something doesn't mean you have to wait 6 months for an answer. Sometimes you do. Do you want to marry me? And somebody says, I don't know. It means like you may need to take some time to think about that. But you may say, somebody may call you and say, do you want to go out to dinner on Friday night? And you feel obligated to give a yes or a no answer. And sometimes the real answer is, can you give me a minute? I'll call you back. Let me check my schedule. And they seem, when you don't validate, I don't know land, I don't know. And I got to sit with this because it's uncomfortable sometimes. We just want to get the answer out of the way.
Right.
But to our demise, and I'd say to my clients or to people in my life and to myself,
Mhm.
we have our inner guidance comes from that gut instinct. On the when someone says, I really don't feel like I have a relationship with my inner guidance, I say, do you have a gut feeling about things sometimes?
Mhm.
Just a
Yes.
gut feeling. You meet somebody and you recoil and you're like, "Ugh," like it's a gut feeling. And if you push yourself into that situation, especially we do it with kids sometimes, it's like you
We do.
watch your, Uncle Johnny comes into the house, you say, give Uncle Johnny a kiss, especially we're an Italian family,
Hmm.
and you see the kids like, it's they're that's the feeling. This feels icky, mommy.
Right,
Like this
right,
doesn't feel, and we grow up and sometimes things, I said, that's the beginnings of your inner guidance telling you, this doesn't feel slightly better. If it does, they're running. I mean, when grandma comes,
right,
they're running into their arms and jumping up and being like, grandma's here, or whoever someone feels very comfortable. But I don't know, is like, or if is a place where it's like, I don't know if I want to do that. And we don't always think that we have the right
right. We should
to
at
say I
least
don't want to.
validate that. And you're right. Like I think that, I'm guessing that judging from the parents that I work with these days, parents are certainly in a conversation about validating your kids. Obviously within limits, not, oh, if you want ice cream for breakfast every morning, it's like, okay, well, that may not be on the table. But the idea of you're talking about you're not talking about indulging, you're talking about simply validating, like where there's choice, well, what flavor would you like? Would you like to go to the park or would you prefer to go to a movie? To open choices up.
Also, with something that you're saying too, it's like, okay, there are times when you say, does it feel slightly better? Like in your mind, you're like, to as a parent, to let
Hmm.
my kid, they're throwing a tantrum before dinner because they want ice cream before dinner, and you're saying to yourself, they're safe, they're warm, this house is there's nothing going on here. And it does sometimes, when we're disciplining our children or ourselves, sometimes it feels slightly better to do the more difficult thing. It's like, no, you're not getting a cookie.
Absolutely.
Like, so this is a way of moving through life, making decisions. And that kid, and you now then you say to your kids, like at a certain point, you know would it feel better for you to can you calm down, can we get a hold of this before it gets bad for you, or you know take some time, take a time out in your room, like you're
Right.
we're interacting with people, but with some knowledge of what's going on in the situation.
Right.
We're talking about making critical decisions is very different than parent you know parenting an upset child.
Or
But
making a decision to just because I'm in discomfort and I need to make a decision to get out of discomfort. Like in that situation, when you're talking about the child who's having a meltdown or whatever, it's like a very common question among parents, which you may have heard, is like, is this the hill I want to die on? And many times, this is not the hill I want to die on. And there are those times in parenthood where it's like, or anything in a job, in a relationship, where it's like, yeah, this is the hill I'm going up, and I might not come back. I might, right? Like, this
right,
is where it's sort of like not having ice cream for dinner tonight, and you can scream for the next 3 hours, and I love you, and I'll let you do that. I prefer if you didn't, but you're still not getting ice cream, right? You're not getting ice cream.
right. And the thing about it, I'm a big fan of I watch Super Nanny, like I love that.
Mm. Love
And
it.
so many times when kids go into one timeout, they never have to go back again. It's not about like being, I'm not a fan of tough love,
No.
but I am a fan of love. And sometimes it's like this behavior in this moment is unacceptable. And, you know, we have to frame things for our
Mm.
kids. But
Right.
these are all, so you see how we have to start pulling apart the ball of yarn.
Yeah. And the thing you
This
said,
is growth.
it's because the thing you mentioned, it was like you mentioned love. You said, I'm not a fan of tough love. I am a fan of love. You mentioned the word love, and then I thought the word discipline. And when I think of those two words, I think about, The Road Less Traveled, seminal book from the 80s, which
Yeah.
I'll read it like every few years again just to get like, oh, I never noticed that. But I remember, I will never forget the first time I read the book. You had recommended it, and I sat down, and it's like, great first page. Like I love the first page. It was like, life is difficult, that it was kind of pulling stuff from Zen Buddhism. And I'm like, oh, I'm all set. I'm ready. I'm so into this. This is going to be a great book. And it comes from, and then like you turn the page and it's like discipline. I'm like, discipline. I don't know if I like that. Read on. And the first, he mentions within like a paragraph, there's four disciplines. And the first one is delaying gratification. And that is literally on the second or third page of the book. And I looked at it and I said, like, oh, I don't like this at all. Delaying gratification. I don't want to do that. Like, and I'm like, okay, this now we're strapped in because you're in the right place. You're in the right place.
Right. And the thing is, the journey, like what I hope life coaching does is in my world is the idea of taking people from unhappiness over the bridge to happiness. And so what they have to, when you first start on the journey of working on yourself, I mean, we all think especially if you start when you're in for me, it started in my teens and my 20s. You think, oh, I'm going to have this fixed in like a year. I'm going to be all better.
Right.
And it's like
Just started therapy. Great therapist. I'm down for this. 6 months to a year.
maximum. And it's like
Max.
I'm a
Right.
right. And then all of a sudden you realize once you get on the on ramp to this road of self awareness and self growth, there is no off ramp. It is life itself. It
Yes.
is, and many people don't. I mean, you can avoid this for a long time, but this lifetime or the next. I'm everybody's beliefs are okay with me. I happen to believe in reincarnation, but my point is that I also believe in a spiritual world and things greater than ourselves, a higher power, however you want to word it, God, whatever. That sort of it's you can avoid for a really long time, but you can't avoid it forever. So once you dive in, it's like it's that it's somebody said this about marriage. The reason we have romantic love,
Mhm.
it's because it tricks us into learning about real love.
Absolutely. It tricks you into putting your foot in the bear trap and getting snared, and then be like, okay, well, as long as I'm here, I might as well. The thing I'm trying to think also. I'm not 100% sure there's like, but I haven't read it. But everyone's heard of Dante's Inferno, right? It's the most famous of the three. He wrote about, you know, hell, then from hell. So hell is a pit where you go down and down and down and down until you get to the nubby center,
Yeah.
right? The
Seventh circle.
frozen
Yeah.
center. Yeah, the frozen center in the middle. And then you come out, and then the next two are purgatory and heaven. So this, I haven't, I've heard this. I hope this is true because I love it. If it's not, to all you Dante scholars out there, please forgive me. But what I heard was that then the next thing you go into purgatory, and what happens is nobody reads about purgatory. What's there to say about purgatory? Purgatory is a mountain, so it's not a pit that you fall into or try to get into or get thrown into. It's a mountain, and around the mountain, at the very base of the mountain, circling the mountain is the circle of procrastinators.
Yeah.
And it's who are just, they're not in hell. They're looking up and they're going like, yeah, that's a big mountain, and it turns out that heaven's up there. Wow, that's
Yeah.
great. So we should go. Yeah, definitely. We should go. And they're all tomorrow. We'll start the journey tomorrow. And I just love that because every
Yeah.
time I'm procrastinating, I think about, yeah, I'm circling. Yeah, there's a big mountain over there.
Well, I want to give some good news to procrastinators. They have done studies and they show that in general, the smartest, the people who procrastinate are usually the smartest people. Do you know why?
Oh,
Because they have the ability to see so many different possibilities of what can happen, and it stymies them. So they just freeze in their tracks. When like in some ways, when you're more of a linear person where you only see one path, there, which is I used to think of, oh, they're sort of like plodding along. And I'm like, those are the successes at the end of the day, like the people that forge ahead
yeah.
sort of get there. when we're sitting on the off ramp or, sitting in the stands watching, Monday morning quarterbacks, like, oh, all that self help stuff. It's like self
Right.
help is being, you're in the game. It is,
Right.
you get on the highway and realistically, you're going to stop and start and pull over into rest stops. But most of the time, you're going to spend the rest of your life growing. And that
Yeah.
is the way it is. So, and when we pause or procrastinate or do whatever, sometimes it's because we're overwhelmed with options. And that's where we bring it back again. I bring people back to their inner guidance. When they, it comes down to learning how to trust your inner guidance. We are walking around with a walking navigation system inside of us, giving us step by step instructions. But if you're not in touch with it, so that's why I say, like, your inner guidance, if you're not a spiritual person, you can think of it scientifically. If you're like, I have a very good friend who calls himself a moralist atheist. He's like, just because I don't believe in God doesn't mean I'm not moral. So it's your moral compass. It's your North Star. However you want to think about it, your inner guidance is, it is speaking to you. It's the thing that
Yes.
says, this just feels right,
Right.
like your gut instinct is this, and developing that to where you're much more in tune on an everyday basis, practicing ahead of time before you're in the seventh circle of hell. And
And
the thing about it is, you get what I'm saying? Like,
I totally do. Yeah.
yeah,
And
like, because
I
because
want, oh, go
most
on.
people have to hit rock bottom. Most people have to hit rock bottom. I did, like rock bottom. I was like,
Absolutely.
okay, I'll start
Absolutely.
working
Rock
on
bottom
myself.
is like I can stand up and I can move on. Right. Exactly.
Right. And we don't hit it once in our life. Sometimes we hit it many
Oh,
times.
multiple times. The thing I wanted when you said that, I had forgotten about this, but so when you talk about inner guidance, and I like the thing that I flashed on was I think it's at the beginning of Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. I believe it's one of the early chapters of Blink, and he's talking about this idea of snap decisions. And the book is very much about when are snap decisions exactly the right thing, and when are snap decisions disastrously wrong, like the the cop who enters a scene and shoots the wrong person, right? Because like makes a snap decision, but it turns
Oh,
out to be the wrong.
yes.
So very much, but the study that I just come back to again and again to, I feel like it validates the idea of like, is there inner guidance? Absolutely, and where does it come from? And to take this from a less spiritual and more scientific perspective, and the two merge. The study was they sat people in a chair and they had them play like a game of solitaire. And they had two decks of cards in front of them, a red deck and a blue deck. And they
Oh,
were
I love
just
this
told,
study.
remember, you've heard this, right? I think
I've
it's
heard
great.
this.
So every time they play a round or a card, whatever they're doing, they're asked, can you formulate a strategy? Can you articulate strategies that someone else might benefit from this or that you will benefit going forward? So it takes them about 70 or 80, as I recall,
Hmm.
plays before they can simply articulate the red deck is good, the blue deck is bad, right? Okay, so the red deck has cards that will be more beneficial, and it takes them about 70 or 80 plays. But they have them hooked up to skin responses and heartbeat and pulse and
Hmm.
whatever, the objective measures of physiology. And what they find is that, but after about 20 plays, every time they reach for the blue deck, the disadvantaged deck, their heart
Yes.
starts racing and their pulse starts going and their skin response goes, it's as if the responses that would trigger a lie detector, it's like your body saying, like, no, don't do that, no, don't do that, right? Are going off. But so they exist in the body objectively, but the person isn't attuned to them. It takes them 60 more cards. And I think that's brilliant because there it is. It's in the body.
And the thing is that why do we have a visceral response to certain people? There's another study that I was just watched, where they show people, they take two groups of people and they say to them, to the first group, think of the happiest day of your life, something really, really happy, and they take a photograph and they say, smile and take a photograph of them. And then they take um, another group of people and they say, think of something awful, like something really, really awful. And, but smile, now smile, we'll take a picture. And almost 100% of the time, when you show those pictures to people and you say, is this a genuine smile?
Mhm.
People just get it immediately. Like there's no, they're both smiling and
Right.
but there's something that we can just tell. It's also, I saw this on a TV show and it was like, there's something called chicken sexers and
Oh,
baby
yes.
chicks.
Yes.
Yes, right. People like when they're with baby chicks, you can't tell if it's a boy or a girl,
Right.
but there's masters of this that know whether they are or not. And they teach within a short amount of time, you pick up a baby chick and the this you put it say male, or female, male, female, and very shortly you for your instinct tells you it's a male or a female. So this is part of who we are. Now, my thing with coaching is why not hone
Mhm.
this ability to connect with our inner guidance on purpose with a plan,
Right.
breaking it down like all the time and start to act on our inner guidance. And as clients act on, and as I act on my own inner guidance, the right things happen. And I also say to people, has there ever been a time you've had that gut instinct you shouldn't do something, but you did it anyway?
Mhm.
And everybody says yes. I said, how'd that go for you? They were like, not very well. How'd
Right.
that work out for you?
Right.
Because we this is a knowing that we have. I'm
Absolutely.
not here to prove to anybody that life works that way. I'm just saying life works a certain way,
Right.
and someone out there can tell you why. Like there's enough scientists that can
Yeah.
explain, and they're all doing great work, like the, quantum mechanics and the unified field, and where all this information is coming from, and how we're not separate from other people. But I'm sort of in the place of where let's figure out the way that life works. Like I told you, my Rubik's cube is. I will bring it to the next time we do a podcast.
Right.
But this idea has come from, when you know how something works. Everybody, anytime you hand somebody a Rubik's cube who doesn't know this, you say, "Oh, do the Rubik's cube," and they say, "I'm not. I'm just not smart enough. My brain doesn't work that way. I'm not good enough." And then I went on YouTube and it said, "Oh, here's how you solve a Rubik's cube. It's the same every time, no matter what if it's a certain. You may have to do 30 turns, 2 turns, 150 turns, but it's this, and you realize it's not that you can't do a Rubik's cube. You don't know how it's done,
And I think
and you're
that's
a
the
math
that's the thing that,
person.
yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's, I guess, in a way, sort of like I work in the realm that is the most verifiable on earth. And in a sense, you work the least, human like life and people's choices. But what I like about I've never heard the thing about the chicken sexing thing. If you were a chicken coach, if you were coaching not chickens, but people to 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 that skill, what I love about that is that it's verifiable, right? So I mean, if you're like you and I, we don't have the training, right? So we would look at two chickens and go like, I can't tell the difference, right? Somebody would come in and through language and demonstration bring us to a place where now we have an objective, verifiable skill. You could put, 20 chickens on one side and 20 chickens on the other side, and when they grow up, you're going to have hens and roosters, right? I
Right.
like when you have, I think it's good to start with when you're trying to think about how do I think about the biggest questions in life, philosophy and theology and the meaning of life, right? The biggest ultimately unverifiable in a scientific way, no matter how far
Absolutely.
you go. But to start with really verifiable things and just train yourself to say, like, well, I didn't know how to do that. And then I learned three things and I know how to do that. And then I didn't know how to do that. And I learned five things and I know how to do that. That there are things in life that are comprehensible. I like the word comprehensibility. I like that because
Yeah.
you that's
Great
what
word.
I hope what a teacher does is enters the room to a bunch of people who find something not comprehensible or barely comprehensible and turn them into a bunch of people who find something comprehensible. And that simply by language and demonstration and time and practice and whatever you're doing. Yeah.
And that's what this is. It's like, it is when you start to say, you know, I'm thinking something, something's coming at me. And there are rules of the game that I call them, like sort of inner critic is all, it's loud, it's mean, it's nasty, it is always attacking. And it's attacking us. So I'm sort of like, and people say like, like their inner critic is like stuck to them almost.
It's
And they're
like
like,
the movie
they're
Alien,
walk,
right?
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they're like, like I don't, like I'm not that involved with my inner critic. And it's like, yes, yeah, like, well, this is like we're teaching for me the idea of teaching people to pull their inner critic away and start seeing it as not who they are, and then start listening to the whisper and start to feel. So when think how do you, so how do you know again if it's your inner guidance? People will say, well, how do I know if it's my inner guidance? It's kind, it's loving, it is never yelling at you, it's always supporting you. It's that inner voice which we don't hear. We got to learn to turn the volume up on it, which means quieting this down, which
Yes.
takes it. It can be done, and the some practical ways of doing it are saying what, like, every day there's a decision to be made. So if you start saying, does something feel slightly better? If something feels slightly better, you're I'm telling you, you're on track to hearing your inner guidance. And if something feels even slightly worse in those decisions, but your inner critic will use everything, including some versions of the truth. If, here's two jobs. This one makes more money, but this one feels better. Well, your inner critic is like, you said you want to make more money. Da, da, da. It's like it's talking and talking, and you disregard the feeling. But the way that things come into our lives is by the way we attract, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
things into our lives by our sort of our thoughts and our feelings lining up, right? It's
Yes.
not, we don't attract things just from our thoughts. Like, you can say all you want, like, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire. These people talk about law of attraction. And I believe in the law of attraction. I believe there are many universal laws, and I think that's one of them. But the idea, if your feeling is not lining up with that,
Right.
we're just at odds, it's not lining up, you're not attracting anything. And the smallest way, like, people can sense, you know, whether we believe our what we're telling
Absolutely.
ourselves. So we have to gradually move up our vibration by finding our own truth.
Yes.
What if something feels better to me? If it feels if two jobs are, $5,000 apart, and this one feels so much better, we've we can look at our own experience most of the time and say, when I choose this, I I just somehow,
Mhm.
boom, I'm off track and I'm starting over again. You start to track. I say,
Yeah.
I always talk to my clients about, we're going to start collecting data now.
Right.
Like, you made a decision. We made it together in the session. You made the decision. I'm not making any of your decisions, but we're talking about, where's it coming from? Make the decision and let's see where the data takes us. And overwhelmingly, the data takes us that when you go towards what feels better, even slightly better, you are moving. If you're think about it this way, if your life feels slightly better and slightly better and slightly better and slightly better, then we start to understand wow, this is what really feeling better feels like. But if you're coming from a place where you've been really beaten down by your inner critic for a long time, and this is sort of the relationship that's the most, that you're most involved with, we gotta, like,
Hmm.
the coaching, it's like, come on, over here, we're gonna we have, this is a teachable, learnable, practicable skill to
Right.
start hearing something inside of you that you already feel. Because when something feels off,
Yeah.
and I don't like the right, I don't like right and wrong on and
No,
off, because there's nothing that's right and wrong. It's right for you or wrong for you.
absolutely.
Two people
And
can make
yeah, and the
you
thing,
go,
and
where I'm going with this.
I think, well, yeah, I sure do. And going back to that test with the blue cards and the red cards and which one, the thing that I the most important thing here. So you could think of this as you could certainly think of this as spiritual and or psychological, and that's a helpful way of looking at it in one realm. So like when we're talking about,
Yeah.
but if you think about this, like, well, where would this have come? Like, for those science skeptics out there, whatever, like, where would this have come from? Well, it would have come from it would be a really good evolutionary tool, like a thing that would have developed over time to have an instinct for what will simply help you survive and what won't. And one of the things that I like to say is, it's like this is like this. I think this is an amazing thing that life came onto this planet, the first cell, what you might call the first cell, came onto this planet, I think it was 4 billion years ago. Again, the people who know better will, correct me, whatever. Call it 4 billion, give or take half a billion, right? Okay. It took 2 billion more years. So it was 4 billion years ago, the first cell existed. It took 2 billion more years for the first multi-celled organism. For me, that's incredible because imagine 2 billion years in this soup where the cell is simply developing and create, like, all sorts of chemical things are happening, and and which of these cells will survive in that and why will they survive? All sorts of capacities encoded in every single cell of our body, let alone the 2 billion years since then, in which multi-celled organisms have developed and higher system levels. But when you think about all of that stuff that's encoded in your body for the purpose of, like, simply survival, and we have access to it, and
We do.
it's more than we have access to it. It's even more fundamental than that because we are it. We are it.
Right.
That's what we are, right?
That's how I would also explain, like, my clients. Um, Sometimes I'm talking and I say, this is what your inner critic is, what you are identifying yourself as. It's almost become your identity. Like, I'm a person who
Mm.
is not good in this way or that way or the other thing. And I'm saying, like, when I talk to people about their inner guidance, I say what happens is that not you you're never going to get rid of your amygdala, which is what, like, the fight, that, like, if it, there are times when this if the if a tiger's chasing you, run. Okay, so that's what this is there for. But because of modern times, it's like, we're not needing this all the time, so you're not going to get rid of it because it's a part of us, but we can quiet it down. And people start saying, wow, I have an inner guidance, that's so interesting. But eventually it's like, quick look at the back of the book. What you are is your inner guidance. That is, you know look at, last page of the book. You are your inner guidance,
Right,
and you have all these capacities, and we're just, but learning how to work with this and
right,
how to hear what you couldn't hear before. That's a process. And it starts with simple measures of the idea, you know, if I'm just slowing down to put a pause right now because I don't like, someone's trying to sell me that car on the used car lot,
hmm,
and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And it's like, when you ahead of time, before you walked on the car on the lot, you said to yourself, what when you if you practice, when in doubt, don't.
right,
When Then if someone says you have to buy now, or if you don't buy it now, the deal's away. You already know ahead of time. I need to pause. I need to think about it. So I teach people to practice things like, thank you so much. No, thank you.
yes,
No, I'll let you know. Anything. almost anything in life can wait 24 hours. And many times we only need to, I've talked to people that have been in exactly that situation, that were walking away from something saying, oh, you've had something recently with
I
a
did.
doctor's office.
I did. Yes, that's right. I was thinking maybe it came back to me again. I'm in Thailand now, even as we speak. I was in China a couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and I wanted to get. I've actually had great success with I think I have a repetitive disorder from texter's thumb, right? Texter, if that's
Yeah.
the official word, texter's thumb, right? Um, and I found that this kind of thing responds really well to acupuncture. So
Mm,
and I'm in China. What better place to go, right? I went to
right.
an acupuncturist, very small office, amazing furniture. I was looking at some of the desks that he had, and it's going, wow, that's amazing. Like, these are, amazing. And in any case, there was something off. It was a small office, and they wanted to charge me $400 for a series of acupuncture. Now, in $400 is a lot of money to put up front for something, but it's an incredible amount of money in China. That's because, and as you hear the story, you will see why. I put a pin in it and said, I'm when in doubt, don't. And then I walked out, and about 5 minutes later, I realized I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Walked into another acupuncturist office where it was just a much cleaner, brighter, more organized setup, which is not always the thing, but clean and bright and organized that's all positive for me in a medical type of profession. They were charging $12, and I didn't have to pay up front. After he found out what I wanted, he said $12. And I said, oh, well, what will it be tomorrow? I said, $12 anytime you come in here, I'll do the same. He did the same treatment for me for like 6 or 7 times. I think it's 70 to 80% better. So, I mean, I'm texting
Right.
again. Right.
But you
And
knew,
right. I
you
knew,
knew.
but I didn't know in the moment. And there was this little part of me was like, well, $400, but it's worth it. And, I'm trying to talk. There's like my inner critic is trying to talk me into it. And my inner guidance is like quiet in the background, just saying, like, well, why don't we wait and see how you feel and see if it's right?
Right. And if you practice like slightly better, like the repetitiveness of this in like,
Mhm.
if something feels slightly better, slightly worse, or I don't know, before you're in a situation where when you get into a situation after a while, when you're practicing saying, I don't know, when you really feel like you don't know and you feel validated in yourself to be able to say that, I need a moment. If, and when you walk away, then you think, none of this felt right to me.
Right.
Or, or there's the other side of the equation where sometimes you feel like you don't want to do something, but your inner guidance is like, well, maybe it's on the other side of this. Like maybe this is a really, like maybe you could, would it feel slightly better to push yourself today to do this?
Right.
Just a little bit better. And you think, yeah, because your inner guidance isn't saying bad Tammy, if you don't do it. It says, could you entertain the idea
Right. Right. It's
of
like the parent that, like you picture one, one parent screaming at the child, get in there and get us, get a, two base hit or whatever, get a home run, whatever. The typical sports parent screaming at the child. But I have to bracket this because I have a good, our neighbor Mike, who is in sports, competitive tennis.
oh, of
But he tells,
course.
I love this story. He says he was watching one parent screaming at his son on the tennis court saying like, get hold of your emotions, get hold of your emotions. And it was so sweet. I wish I just had a camera at that moment. It was this is perfect irony. But and that that one versus the parent who's like, okay, let's see if we can find out what's going on. Let's see if we can, maybe today's the day and maybe today's not the day, but you're not going to lose my respect or lose my love based on this decision. We're just in it together trying to find out what the right path is when you're going through something difficult. And that's a much better skill to impart, obviously, than just push through it and.
And again, a lot of these things come down to practice. work with parents with the kids sometimes that I work with, mostly teenagers and older. And I say, when you don't know what to say, start with, I love you, I believe in you, I'm on your side, we're in this together, how can I help? So like that, if you did that for 2 weeks straight, when you're going through a rough time with your kid, half the time the problems get solved because your kid is having a meltdown on the tennis court and you just say, how can I help? What do you need here? And it's like sometimes they just need someone to listen, but we're always talking. So this gives you, I'm saying, but you can practice those. You notice how I'm rattling them off,
Yeah.
but you working on yourself and your relationship to your inner guidance, there's methods and like a lot of these things, I put a lot of metaphors and sort of methods in these ways of being, because when you don't, like, you're sitting there and your kid is, you don't know what to say, if you just think, okay, could any of one of those 5 statements help me?
Right.
I love
That's
you.
right.
That's always good. Like, honey, I
Right.
love you. I'm on your side. You know, we're, I love you. I believe in you. And not only I believe in you, I believe you. Like, there are a
Right.
lot of times where kids come home from school and it's like, my teacher's being really, really mean to me. And a parent, or they're like, well, what did you do?
Hmm.
And it's like, I said my teacher was being mean to me. I didn't say I did, like, okay, I believe you. Tell me more. I like, and I believe in you. Like, I know
Hmm.
what kind of a kid you are. Okay, let's see what's going on here. You
Right.
start to pull it apart, but it gives you that space where you're, when you don't, this is 5 things to say when you don't know what to say. When
Right.
the answer you're having in your head is, "Oh, I
Right.
don't,
And I,
my kid's behavior doesn't is it's triggering me." But you again, if you have things to do ahead of time.
right. That's the thing it works for me. Like when so the fact that you can rattle off those 5 things that in other words, the way that I would encourage my students, like, well, you need to know the multiplication tables and not, I need to think about what's 4 times 5, which is 4 times 5 is 20, on to the next thing. The way, like, when you think about like a basketball move, like, like fake right, go left, how many times did Michael Jordan practice fake right, go left, fake left, go right, fake right, fake left, go right, whatever combination of crazy stuff that he did to obliterate his opponent's ability to stop him? How many times did he have to practice that before he could just do that on the basketball court in a heartbeat with, 5 seconds on the clock kind of thing? Like,
Right. And the thing is, like, we have to, this is, this podcast beyond is about thinking beyond. I mean, like, what are the, and I want to think to myself, the universe, what I have found to be true. This may not be, as you say, your mileage may vary. But for me, what I have learned is that the universe works a certain way. And it's earthly laws work in a certain way, and universal laws work in a certain way. And I'm going to give a small example. I'm not here to be able to prove to you, even though there are quantum mechanics is proving this now, and enjoy YouTube finding out whether what I'm saying is true or not. But we all know, like, I'm going to take these glasses here and just say, okay, this is an earthly law. I drop them, gravity, right? It's gravity works. But if you take these glasses up to the moon, gravity doesn't work the same way.
right.
Universal law works everywhere. Now, figuring out what those laws are is what I'm spending my time doing for me, because I want to be able to teach that to my clients. Like, I truly believe in it, that love is more powerful than fear. It's and the only way that, like, I don't have a way of saying to you, and this is exactly why. It's just the what there's the way that it works. Try it. You'll see
Yes.
the power. Like, this is an experience that you have to, this is a journey you have to experience.
Absolutely.
But but in the end, like fear is like if you throw love and fear into the deep end of a pool, fear is treading water and love is floating.
Absolutely. Right. And it's
So
funny as you mentioned, as you talk about it, I'm flashing my best friend in college was named David, who you know. And shout out to David if you're watching the
love
vid.
David.
Love David. But we, because of our upbringing and the things that he gravitated towards, he found spirituality and I would say faith in love much sooner than I did. And there was in the early couple of years of our friendship, there was like a tension between us because I felt that he was overly romantic and I didn't see the proof of it, whatever, and more in my head about it. And it was my journey. It took me about 3 or 4 years. I would say 4 years, because I think when I was about 21, I started having experiences that began to be the beginnings of the universe is made of love. And
Absolutely.
there was a point, I guess, in my early 20s where I made this wasn't a deal with the universe, but let's say that I heard my own inner guidance. And what my inner guidance was saying at that moment was, how about try this out? Try this out. In other words, do a noble experiment. See if this works. So let's say I was 22, 23, 24 when I was going through that. Okay. Um, Cut to about, I would say when I was about maybe 33. So, been doing this for 10 years, right? And the next message I got from the universe on that was, so Mark, we've been doing this for about 10 years, right? And it seems to be working. The time is coming when you're having one foot in one door and one foot
Yes.
outside the door is no longer going to be viable. And you can like if you think about it as a relationship, it's sort of like at the beginning of a relationship for someone to say like, I love you, and if you're not ready to marry me, let's continue to see each other and find out. But then 10 years in, that person might come to you and say, you know what? Getting on that time, my biological clock is ticking. I would say it's time to make a decision. And I really, at that point, did begin to take my foot out of that door and put it fully on the side of the time for verifying is over. And the time for simply living into this. Like, well, all the evidence points to love is the answer
Yes.
now, but you can't like, well, I'm still, okay, like get into the room and now see what the room of love is the answer looks like because there's more rooms to follow. But you can't get there if you're going to stand one foot in the door waiting.
So
So that was
true.
my burn,
And
my journey.
that's sort of what it's about. It's like there's a point in time for me where it's like I haven't yet verified. I bought a Rubik's Cube and I just want to verify, like I mix it up and I'm in the next few days, I'm going to see if that works. Like all these people are doing it. And after a while, like I started living from a place that was love doing the loving thing as an action, as a feeling, as a way. And I started to notice like just on the smallest levels, like, I lived in New York City for a long time and I would go on a subway and just test it. Like if you start smiling at people, all of a sudden it's contagious. People,
Yeah.
I mean, all of these things that we're talking about are verifiable through the newest science that they can test all of these things. Your brain lights up and when people are we're constantly affecting people by our energy and what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's all verifiable, but the living this way, like you always say to me, like it's really hard to fight with you, Tammy, because if you won't fight with somebody, it's just sort of like, hmm, like
That's right.
you take the loving stance. You're not explaining yourself.
Right.
As Catherine Hepburn said, never complain and never explain.
Hmm.
It's like if you take that stance and just work with the premise that love is more powerful than fear for a little while and prove it to yourself. So, like when I'm working with someone new, as we started here, we talked about that. It's like I am a coach that's going to lead you down roads that are going to be maybe difficult. Like at the end of the day, I'm not saying in every given moment, forgiveness is the answer to every problem, but
Mhm.
all roads eventually, and as I said, this lifetime or the next, all roads are leading towards forgiveness. Like, like we get to the point where the grudge is over. There's, you've seen you start to say, I see both sides of it. Like
Right.
we learning about love is saying, what's my part in something? If there's a, the street's messy, what's on my side? What part of the mess is on my side of the street? What
Mhm.
part of the mess is on your side of the street? And looking at it and saying, we're we're all standing there. Do you want, again, the old sayings, that oldies but goodies? Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yeah.
So the universal laws, like love is more powerful than fear. Einstein was saying, like, you can't fight you can't fight war with war.
Correct.
You can only fight war with peace. You can't
Right.
fight,
Then you have to move to you like the idea you can't solve a problem at the level the problem
at
was
the
created.
level.
Exactly. That's it. You have to go one level up from that. You have to be able to view the problem from a higher level. Yes.
Right. Like, do we need scientific evidence to prove that joy feels better
Right.
than, all, I mean, on the range of emotions and the
Right.
emotional scale, we can prove scientifically that the
Mhm.
love is a higher vibration. But
You need
and
that.
and
You need
yeah,
that.
it's yeah,
Right. At the
yeah,
end of
but
the day, you need that. Right.
yeah. So once you have, but it takes about really such a short time to prove these things to yourself. And then I think to myself, wow, if some of these like the law of resonance,
Hmm.
I mean, the law of like there's you can prove certain things to yourself so easily. The law, like the law of balance. Like I have friends that always come in from out of town. They're wonderful friends, and they always want to take me out to dinner. Always, always, always. Eventually, if somebody takes you out to dinner 4 times,
Hmm.
you you almost don't want to go because you're the law of balance is like the
Hmm.
idea, like I need to reciprocate. Like I don't even want to see you anymore until you let me reciprocate.
That's right.
And also on the other side of the equation, if you are always the one giving, 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 just because this universe needs balance, you will even if you're not in touch with it right away, resent
Hmm.
when people are always taking from you, even if you love giving to them.
Right.
Other than when we're talking about little, you've got a little kid, they're gonna, that's their job to take from you. I get it, like but at a certain point, there are these laws that are happening in the universe. I say everybody knows everything.
Hmm. Hmm.
We have a sense that when people are being dishonest with us, we have a sense of, it's just this knowingness. We can debate it. When people come, you said, what do you say to people when they're coming to you? We can debate. There are people that want to have the debate about these things, and there are people that want to learn how to live within the laws of the universe, and they are not always, they're sometimes they can be incongruent with earthly laws,
Right.
like on like where it's like getting ahead. You know,
It's
I'm
a
gonna push
stretch.
myself.
Right.
Right. Or people are like, I'm the hustle and the grind, and I'm gonna, like, that's how I'm gonna be successful. It's a way to be successful, but is it the best way? Like that's an earthly way to do it. Like, oh,
It's
I'm
funny
gonna,
the way that I'm thinking of it. It's like, and you like I know you read the E-Myth Revisited years ago, which is a great. I
yes,
just
of
read it.
course.
I read it about a month ago, and I was thinking about, I'm trying. I try to take things when I read them and put them into my own words in my own head and stuff. And I think one of the takeaways. I don't know that that the author said it this way, but it's like if you think about it, the idea, and there's also Profit First, which is another, I don't remember the name of the author. I should, but who also wrote the Pumpkin Plan, right? Amazing, cool business books. But the point that they both seem to be getting at, especially Profit First, is this idea that if you could create a business. People think to themselves like, well, I'm going to create a business where I'm the only person working, and whatever money I make, I put it back in the business. It's like, okay, so how much profit do you have? Well, I have zero, but I'm working to build a business. And it's like, okay, understood. I understand why you're doing that. Okay. Now I'm going to hire a second person, pay them. I'm making more money. I'm going to take my profit and still put it back into the business. Okay, now what do you have? I have a business with two people. How much profit are you making? Zero. But I'm building a business. It's like, okay, great. So now you hire a third person, a fourth person, a fifth person, and you're doing the same thing. So it's like, now what do you have? I have a business with 10 people, and how much profit are you making? Zero. It's like, do you see where this is going? Do you like
Yes.
stop? Okay, now we've done this for long enough. You've tried this noble experiment. Do you see where this is going? You can do this forever. You could have a business with 100 people working for you that has no profit. Now, what do you think you can sell that business for? Business that makes no profit, right? So
Right. Right.
if you stop, do you see the idea of like, so what if you
Absolutely.
stop and build the profit part in first, where it's like that's a line that I don't cross, and I'm building profit in first so that I have a business with one person that makes a profit. I have a business with two people that makes a profit. I have a
Absolutely.
business with 10 people that makes a profit, right? And once
Right.
you think of it, it's like, no, you don't understand. And it feels to me like that sort of punch and grind and dig and crawl and claw aspect of like,
You can only
where are
keep
you
it up for
going to
so
get to?
long.
And where are you going to get to? It's like, okay, I'm finally in the best penthouse in New York. And what are you doing? Scratching and clawing and scraping and like,
Right.
but do you understand that you started this the day that you stood when you were down in the basement apartment? You started this, and you've been moving up ever since, and you haven't rethought the fundamental cornerstone of the
Right.
plan
Right.
you're
That's what I'm saying is that it's just how we live our life is we're going to have we have to live in the duality of the way that life works on earth, and at the same time we can make choices to live fr- from the compass of the inner guidance. Like inner critic will get is a compass to somewhere, but how bad is where it's going? Or we can something is our navigation system. So for me, I want to not only know how I can, like, when I say that the most important thing a parent can do for their children is to take care of themselves, to take care of their own mental health, to learn to self-regulate, to be working on themselves spiritually and emotionally, in all kinds of ways. And we use the word selfish, and I think that word should be changed to self-care. And like the idea also, I mean, a lot of words in have gotten a bad rap, especially in religion, like, pride, be feeling, if you feel proud of yourself, you feel good about yourself, walking around feeling good about yourself because you have the data to prove to yourself, like, I feel good about myself because I'm actually doing the things that I set out to do. One of my great friends says the way to build self-esteem is to keep the promises you make to yourself. And I
absolutely.
love that.
Yeah,
And,
there's
and
a.
it's
Oh, go on.
like you,
I
no,
was
you
I
go
was
on.
I was going to say 12-step programs, the words that I've heard is the way to self-esteem is to continue to do esteemable acts. So in other words, if you continue to act in a way that is consonant with one who should feel self-esteem, like do
Right.
good things, like be nice to your friends, be nice to strangers, give to charity, like show up for work when you say do, like, but you're talking about integrity, like be if be an integritous person. It's like there's no, this is of course in education now, this has become an axiom, the idea of like, the old, everybody gets a prize for showing up, and that's a, bad idea. It's like we're trying to build self-esteem. Well, of course, kids see through that. There's no 10-year-old in the world who receives a trophy that everybody else received and esteems that trophy. They don't esteem the trophy. They don't value the trophy. So they don't value the message of the trophy. And, if you want to feel good about yourself, do the work that is required to show up in a way that then people say, attaboy. but coming from the real place. One of the
Right. And
things, oh, go on, you go, go. Now
and
your
the
turn.
thing is that you have to like sometimes, putting yourself first and doing what's right for yourself sometimes means that you can't be doing everything for everybody else. You have to be doing what you're doing for yourself. And for me, the number one thing that we can start to do, well, there's for me, the equation is get in touch with your inner guidance and then figure out the way that this universe works. I mean, many people talk about the law of attraction, and it's a sort of it can sort of give you almost an ick factor in it, like, oh, that word, but it plays out to be true. It's like you attract who you are. Want to know who you are? Look
Look
at the people
around,
in your life.
look
Look
around. Right.
around. That's who
Yeah.
you are.
Right.
If
Or that's
you can.
that's it isn't I know I sure you I bet you would agree with this. It's like, well, no, that isn't who you are, but that's who you think you are, right? Like you're like fabulous beyond like when a person sees their 11-year-old daughter struggling in school and unhappy and miserable, it's like a good parent, it's like that's not who you are. I know who you are. I know who you are, but who you're showing
Right.
up as is I don't want you to. You must be thinking that you're a lot less than what you are because I want so much more for you because I love you.
Right. But if you know that if you understand the connection between your inner guidance and the in a sense the glue that holds this universe together, you start learning those rules of the game, the rules of the way that universe love is, like we're gonna teach more with love than we are with fear. You can get, you can, as Esther Hicks says, you can beat a dog into submission, but you'll never have a loyal dog. It's like there's just a way that things work that always works on a long-term basis. So you're learning your internal navigation, and then how to navigate this universe as we live in it. That's to me the what I want to be doing in this world is for myself.
Mhm.
Number one, I mean, like when you become a life coach, most of the time it's for the reason that you are trying to navigate your own life better.
Right.
It's something that fulfills you. If like the last thing you want is, like, you're a teacher by nature in every possible way. You teach because if you weren't out there teaching and getting paid for it, to write books about teaching, to speak about teaching, to you would be teaching anyway. If I was when I was a painter, and a decorative painter, I was on the line at Target coaching people. I was coaching every friend. We have to say that, like, putting whatever inch, whoever you are, figuring that out,
Mhm.
putting that first, and then going out into the world and into a world that we are piecing together by learning the rules of this universe, the way that work all the time. Like, you know, you can you can get away on in earthly laws, so to speak, of like, okay, there's it's a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit. You can drive 70 a lot of times and get away with it. But universally, karma, you're doing bad things, like, there is no fool in the universe. Karma,
Right.
she's a coming to get you. As they
And
say, she's coming
yeah,
around.
absolutely coming
She's
up.
coming around the mountain. Like maybe not this lifetime. People say, well, life isn't fair. It's like it depends. What was the famous person who said, like, you
You fool
know,
some of the people. No,
no, but like,
no,
where,
that one. Okay, that was Lincoln.
where the story, yeah, where how, the ending of the story depends on where you stop in the book. You know what I mean? Like, this is the arc. A belief system is understanding that, is figuring out that maybe in this particular lifetime, you things don't look fair,
Hmm.
but coming, like, figuring out how it all works is,
Yeah,
it's you can run, but you can't hide from
yeah,
your own
yeah.
behavior. You
The
can,
car when you talk about karma, it's like karma gets a bad rap because some people, it's this BS, and again, like I am a huge believer in a lot of this stuff. It just strikes some people the wrong way, but like if,
Right.
so to bring it to to a math guy perspective is sort of like probabilities, okay? What is the probability? I've got this great story. I have a friend. I'm not going to say his name because of the nature of the story, but like just like he's an angry guy. He's just like by nature an angry guy. And I years ago we were walking down a street in San Francisco, and we're neighbors there at the time, and we're walking by a bar, and we just like it there's a it, we're the doors open, and I didn't notice it because I'm just having a conversation with him, but there's a bar fight going on inside, and he's like, wait a minute, what's going on? There's a bar fight. I know that guy. Like I'm telling you, within like a nanosecond, he was tuned to like looked at the bar, noticed a fight, noticed he knew the guy, and was 1 foot in the 1 foot in the door, 1 foot in the door to joining a bar fight that he had absolutely no idea what the context was. And I just basically took his shoulders and I said, now we're going this way. And we just continued walking down the street. And he's like, yeah, but, and I'm like, now we're going this way. Like, I'm like, why would you want to join a bar fight? Why would you? And it's like, because he was tuned to all that. Like, why would an anteater look for ants? Right? Tuned to
Right. And
ants.
that's the point of this whole thing is that we these some of these catchphrases have like law of attraction are turning people off, but the principle is sound. Like what you are looking for in life, you are getting. And it takes work
Mm-hmm.
to shift the balance of things in your life. If you've been living with the main conversation in your life is listening to your inner critic, which is, like I said, the conglomeration of every negative thing going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there are tough choices you have to make because you understand that what you view all the time, you start to attract to yourself, what you start
Right.
to engage with. And people say to me, because I really don't watch the news and I don't want to have those conversations, and how do you know what's going on in the world? I say, believe me, you'll get the base when things are going, when you really need to know something, the universe will get you that answer. The universe, and another one of the universal laws that I think about is the universe is always trying to help you. It is like it's sitting there like, please ask me for, please ask me, please, and we just spend so much time thinking there is such value in, knowing I need to be informed and I have to do this. Like, yes, and there's a whole, but tell me what is that adding to your life?
Yeah.
Where's the happiness?
Right.
Because for me, there's to change one's behavior takes a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
This is not wishful thinking.
Right.
It's, I mean, even though I have like a saying about how we manifest things:
Right. Right.
wishing, wanting, hoping, believing, knowing, manifesting.
Right. So I really like that, and I want to hear more about that. Just like from wishing. So say them again, and I want to just hear like the sort of the rainbow colors as we go
Right.
through those 6
Because
things.
people think that like they're going to go from being completely negative. People come into coaching, you're like, a lot, my clients especially are the hardest workers in coaching. Like I have the most coachable clients. They're amazing. And I always tell people this is going to take longer than you want, and it's going to happen faster than you can imagine.
Mhm.
The change. It's always completely dualistic. You know what I mean? Like it's, I would say, this change that you want to make, you're going to feel like you're trudging, and it's like, and then you're going to look back and say, wow, it didn't even take 6 months for me to gain this new way of being. So when I am teaching people about manifesting, a lot of times manifesting positive things in their life, we're always manifesting. We are not manifesting. We are attracting things into our life, whether we like it or not. So
Yes.
self-awareness. And so when people say, I can't just believe I'm a millionaire today, that's fair. So so, and it doesn't mean we have to go through every step, but think about the idea. And I've heard people say, oh, you shouldn't say you want something because then you're going
Hmm.
to get more wanting.
Hmm.
Yes, you are. But again, when we're facing and we're talking about and everything we don't want in our life, and we want to change directions. And
Hmm.
that starts with, like, if somebody says like, I can't ever imagine really being financially abundant.
Hmm.
Okay. So you can't say to them, write down affirmations and put them on
Right.
your, I mean, that will happen. So you can do that someday. But in the
Right.
beginning, what do you wish you could have?
Absolutely. And right, daring to wish, just simply because like I think people, like people could do that really like, yeah, well, I wish I had $10 million in the bank. You could say it with snark, right? I wish I had like,
Right.
okay. I
Change the
hear without the
tone.
snark, okay, thank you. I wish I had $10 million in the bank.
And
Okay.
what have you done? Like by just so yeah, like I would, like what so if I just wish I'm gonna I'm gonna win the lottery, I'm gonna win the lottery. It's like, how about saying, yeah, I wish like when you're saying talking about something, yeah, I wish I could win the lottery. Okay, so what are other things that you wish? Now, why pick a wish? What do little kids do? Think about Disney, wishing upon a star, that the
Mhm.
logo,
Sure.
right? So it's the smallest step that most people can say. I tell them, forget the second half of the equation. I wish I could have that, but I know it's not going to happen for me. So I
Right.
just say, cut it off at, I wish
And
I
that's
can meet somebody.
that's also probably a reflection of a true sentiment inside you. Like, I wish a lot of things, but I don't dare say them. And then, so the next step is then from wishing to wanting. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's like wishing. And then when you start to wish something like, I would like to have a new job. I would like to be more financially abundant. I would like to have more friends in my life. So I encourage people to say, you know, yeah, I wish I did have more friends in my life. Oh, okay. I wish I do. So you're starting your
Mhm.
it's about play. You start to
So you
play with
you
ideas.
admit that you want that. Even to admit that you
To
want that
admit
is
it,
a
to
step,
admit it.
right?
It's the step that turns you from facing the direction I can't to I wish.
Mhm.
And the can't zone is a whole other thing, but like wish is the first step. So, you're starting out like, I really wish I could have another job. I'm not really happy in the job that I think, okay, so like, so what kind of job would you wish for? Well, I wish, da, da, da. And then like a few weeks into talking about that, it's like, yeah, I'm really, I actually want a new job. I haven't really thought that. And then it's like, wishing, wanting, it's like, wow, I really am hoping. Oh,
Mm. And
I hope I could
that's one level more into the
see.
dare, right? Like wishing, okay, I can wish whatever, blah, 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 with snark, to I actually admit that I want that, to like, wow, do I dare hope that I could get that? Yeah.
Right. You see how it moves up, hoping, and then it's like, and then all of a sudden you've gone on three interviews because you were hoping, you're like, I hope I can get a new job. It's like, well, did you think about writing a resume? Now we're on that, like just getting out there and putting a resume out there. Yeah. It's like now you've been on a few interviews. Oh, I'm hoping I can get that job. It's like, and then you have one great interview and you say, I kind of believe I can get that job. I'm
Mm.
completely qualified. And then you're in you're in the third interview and you're like, I know I'm knowing I'm getting this job. I am a fit for this job. And then boom, from knowing to manifesting. Now, many people can start, some people are farther down the road. You don't have to go through every step. But the point is, if you need to, you can go through every step just
Mhm.
in the session of admitting what you would wish for. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like I've never been able to say this out loud without somebody feeling that when you're in a coaching scenario, just like a teaching scenario, you
Mhm.
create a safe space.
I can
Let's
think of
start
like,
dreaming.
if I go back like to a few years back, like before different things. Like I can remember the feeling of daring to admit that I wanted to sing on stage, like sing in front of a band, which I'm, manifested. I mean, I did that, like
Hey, we did it
I'm not,
together.
yeah, well, I mean,
You've
uh, I was at the background. I was supporting you in being the front person, but there was this
But
middle
you were in your
period.
own band too,
But
where
that's it. I,
you were
and
the
that
front person.
where that took a certain amount of daring to like. I I remember the thought that I had at the time was, I'm not even allowed to want this. And now I look back
Right.
on this like, well, I guess you are. And because I did. I mean, I did that. But then
Absolutely.
the same thing with even just teaching in front of groups, because and there was a point at which I was entrenched in a writing career and I was writing, but I was also, because I was writing and explaining, and I knew that I was the person in class who people came to me after class and said, "Can you explain this to me?" And I would be able to explain it. And people would say, like, like in good moments, people would often say, like, "Oh, why didn't the teacher explain it that way?" And I'm like, well, they understand it at a high level, and I'm just one step ahead of you. Like I just learned it and I'm explaining it to myself. So they have
Yes.
like 64 different ways of understanding it, and they may be making it more complicated, where I'm just like, I'm hanging on by a thread, but if the thread holds, I'll pull you up. Right?
Well, that's also the journey of like for me of a life coach. My, I'm fairly transparent with my clients that I am doing this because I have known unhappiness,
Yeah.
you know, for a lot of years, and people tend to see me as like, you're such an upbeat person. And I'm like, have you met me? Like, I've been down that, that dark road. I have seen the dark night of the soul. And it, it was, I sort of say like, it's, you're going across what we're asking you to do when you start a spiritual journey or an emotional health journey is that you're sort of what we're asking you to do is walk across an invisible bridge that goes over like the Grand Canyon, like you have to like take the steps even though you can't see almost that there's going to be a step in front of you. And that's why I love the idea of methods. Like if I say to someone like, wishing, wanting, hoping, believing, knowing, having, it it's it when you can recite out loud how to like love is more powerful than fear when everything is going sideways. Like I start to make ways of speaking to myself that I can then teach someone else. But you have to do it for yourself first. Like when I love this, when things go sideways, or as we say, pear-shaped, I just love
Mm-hmm.
that saying. Sorry, it's my new favorite saying. Um, is I've now learned after many years of asking the worst question I could ever ask
And
when
what's
something
that?
goes side. The worst question I ever used to ask myself was, what did I do wrong? Immediately facing where I don't want to go. All of a sudden, if you ask your inner critic, what did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to turn that ship around, turn that bus around, when something goes sideways, the first question I ask myself is, how can this be a good thing?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may be too vibrationally high. I am willing to feel that discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say people drop it down if it's too much. Like I can't, like if something is really bad, I say sometimes you have to say, what can I learn from this?
Yes.
What is this? What
What's
is this
trying to
teaching
happen
me?
here? What is this teaching me? What's trying to
What's
happen
trying to
here?
emerge here?
Right,
What
right.
are, is so you know clients all the time, many times, and I try to come up with ways. Like I just got over pneumonia in January, and like how could this be a good thing when you're going
Yes.
through it is not the moment, but after it
Yeah.
starts to like as you're like sort of feeling better, okay, how can this be a good thing?
Hmm.
Wow, I needed to slow down.
Yeah.
I needed to think. You can, if you ask, another one of these universal laws, ask and it is given.
Yeah. There's
Ask and
a
you shall receive.
there's like this is a story I love, because this is, I don't no spoilers. I'll tell the story, but it's like I start out by saying like, okay, so picture it's the early 1970s and you're a young 23-year-old, 22-year-old, charismatic guitarist, songwriter, working with your girlfriend, trying to make a band happen, right? Like in
Oh, I
LA,
know.
you know where we're going with this. It's like those who are
I love.
fans will know, right? You know, and you're just getting on the road to like beginning to succeed, and you get mono, right? So not just a little case of mono, but like the kind of mono that literally puts you in bed for close to a year. Like really
Yeah.
exhausted. Certainly can't go out and do gigs, can't really do a band, whatever. So, okay, worst thing that could possibly happen to this person, like a complete setback. What happens is, so this guy can only stay in bed, so just practices guitar and gets like, takes a good level of guitar playing to a much better level, a much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Productive or, yeah, he's good. He's getting good, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens is the next thing that happens is you have a chance to join this band where they really need a guitarist. And you join, and the name of the band is Fleetwood Mac, and your name is Lindsey
Yeah.
Buckingham, and your girlfriend's name is Stevie Nicks, and everybody knows what happens next. But it's like, but would he, and like, the question has to come up, like, you know, if he had joined the band the year before, and they'd said like, "Wow, you're really good, but dude, we're a really
Yeah.
professional band, and you're not quite good enough to keep up with us."
There
Whole
you
different
go.
history happens. So what
Right.
is trying to happen here? What is trying? Look, what could be puzzle? What could
Right.
be wrong? What could be wrong? What could be right? Yeah.
Right. So if you're like, there's always your inner critic is serving up on a silver platter all the
I
ways
mentioned
that
that was Fleetwood Mac, right? I did mention that was Fleetwood Mac.
you mentioned it was Fleetwood Mac, but
Okay,
how could
good.
you?
I
Yeah.
couldn't do
But
that. I
the
can't
the
leave
thing
you
about
hanging.
it is yeah, the thing about it is that if if he had said, like this is, God's out to get me and the unity, like nothing, no, there's all that is a that's a choice.
And
That's
he
a
may have
choice.
like if I were him, I would have said that, and I would have
Right.
been. Turns out it would have been wrong, right?
Right. And at the same time, this he sharpened his skills when as Stephen Covey would say, sharpened the saw, he sharpened his skills and his girlfriend hung in there with him and maybe they were sitting there around every night and just writing songs together. Who knows? The thing is, do we dare ask a question when something goes sideways?
Mhm.
How can this be a good thing?
Right.
And now when I'm saying, don't believe me, test the theory, test what I'm saying. I have my clients say when something we they come, they're like, this thing happened. So I say, how can this be a good thing? And we start writing down things. They're like, there's nothing good that came from this.
Mhm.
Write one thing. Oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think well, because of that, then I was able to be around for my, whether it's not an illness, something, the car broke down. Well, I happened to be home with my son that night. And then I didn't get to go to that great party I wanted to go to, but I had this amazing talk with my son. I mean, how you and I became close is, you know, you know, we were having, parents are fighting or things aren't going well. And it's like just stumbling into each other. And how could
Right.
two parents fighting be a good thing? Well, that was the spark that brought us closer together.
Right.
And
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 brought us to authenticity, because I always think of that like the
oh
first conversation is like it was never like I don't remember us fighting. I mean, we certainly did,
no,
as
I
kids
don't
and
either.
whatever, but not like it's not like it was like, oh my God, this terrible,
No.
but what it was, it for me, it was, I guess, go back to Scott Peck and like he talks about stumbling into community where it's like you suddenly find yourself. And for me, that was the first stumbling into community where, wow, we're being authentic, which isn't a word that was ever used in our household. It wasn't that like, oh, it's better to be authentic. Well, what is that? That wasn't on the table. But but it
No.
was the first of, oh wait, wow, I know what that feels like. and that's
Right.
good. And then in high school, you know, I was, part of a group, an after school group that also, I didn't have the word at the time, but pursued authenticity. Where I
And do you
first,
know that authenticity is, they've done studies that like authenticity, when they show parts of the brain light up, that, authenticity is one of the highest vibrations, that one of the things that heals more things in the
right?
body, being authentic.
Yeah.
Forgiveness and authenticity, I mean, are right like up there with
Gratitude,
love.
right? Big,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm saying
Yeah.
authenticity, they're now showing ways of measuring, like when people feel authentically themselves, like
Right.
all kinds of physical ailments disappear.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
When I was in the like I was pulled out of school for 3 days for a group, and that turned into an after school group. But for at the time, it was just sort of, for want of a better word, it was like an encounter session, like essentially. And the teachers, I guess, had this idea that, like, let's get a group of kids who, either they thought we were struggling or they thought we were open, maybe a little of both, right? Sometimes kids who are struggling are more open because they, got no place to go, right? So, um, but within the first day, I remember walking into the group feeling like, well, this is just a group of kids like any group of kids that I've ever hung out with in high school, like any one of my classes, fifth period. And by lunchtime, we had been, because of the exercises we were doing things from a book called Values Clarification, which was a really cool book of just like examining what you consider to be important versus what the kid next to you considers to be important. And those things will be different. And let's see what that is. And by lunchtime, I came away saying, I thought I was the only one who was struggling. I mean, imagine that, but I'm 15 years old, and I really thought I was the only, that every other kid had it all together, and
I do too.
now they,
Absolutely.
now this, it's like, oh, well, he's struggling because his parents are divorced, and she's struggling because she lives with her mom, but she wants to live with her dad, and this kid is struggling because
All
he's not getting good enough grades. And the struggle was universal. And when people became authentic about it, had the space not to just cover it up and be like, hey, everything's good, something happened and it was magical. And that was that was again, you and I, and then this group, and then now I just search for it. I'm always trying to sniff it out like a bloodhound, trying to find where
And
is the
also,
groups that
eventually
are
you
going to be
can
authentic.
cultivate it. You can
Yeah.
also cultivate it, if you are being authentic, like as often as you can. And you're having really good clarifying conversations, and you know talking about self-improvement. Eventually, like, I had someone say to me one time, which I thought was funny, uh like, oh, I have the best conversations with you, Tammy. Like, I don't have these kind of conversations with other people. And I thought, I don't have anything but these conversations with anybody. I mean,
Right.
and I thought to myself, hmm, everybody's not doing, like, everybody's not on, searching to better themselves. And I realized it was because for so long there was so much pain in my life
Mm-hmm.
that you, when you start, I was working on yourself. Like, I always tell people to shoot for the feeling of relief. When something
Mm-hmm.
feels like, to be authentic for even a short amount of time feels like
Yeah.
relief. It feels
Yes.
like you can exhale.
Massive relief. That's exactly right. Massive relief. That is a great way to talk about it. It's like
So
you
again,
don't really. It's like the refrigerator that's been like clanking in the background for like 2 hours, and then when it's a and I'm like, oh my God, the
uh,
silence is so healing. I didn't
oh,
realize how on edge I was because of that terrible sound that I didn't even acknowledge, and that's the relief.
right. So again, I'm so obsessed with
Yeah.
language, because
Yeah.
if you can say it, you can act on it.
Hmm.
If just someone takes away from this and just says, the feeling, when do I feel relief? Like, now it's a problem when you think to yourself, I feel relief every time my husband leaves the house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I feel such relief.
Hmm.
wow, now that's going to say, take you to a
Hmm.
place where you're like, well, why, or another happy couple is like, oh, I feel such relief at the end of the day when my husband comes home and
Right.
we're like, and like the best part of the day starts to begin. Or
Right.
or whatever it is. I'm not, there's again no right and wrong, right for you or wrong for you. But what what I'm trying to work on in my own life is like, there's a bullseye. What am I shooting for?
Right.
I'm shooting, so I think to myself, here's all the negativity that I could be thinking about. And here's, and I tell people to picture, everybody knows what that little scale looks like, where you put, and just putting those, you know, one more positive thought on it,
Hmm.
one more
Hmm.
positive thought, even slightly.
Hmm.
Like we just want to move, it's like the little train that could, we want to just, it's, and what are the things that we should start to recognize? Oh, I feel relief when my house is all clean.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe, like I don't know what, like my whole life is falling apart. Well, I feel relief every time I clean my house. So maybe when you're upset about something, make the bed. You'll feel a little better. Like
Right.
small things that make a big difference. And if you put enough small things that make a big difference, you know, love is more powerful than fear. When like, so okay, I know that I attract from what I'm
Hmm.
thinking and what I'm feeling. So I'm gonna try and keep them aligned, like
Hmm.
what's coming, if I'm hearing, so I know that there's balance in the world, can't, so all these things that you can pull from. I don't know what to say to my kid right now. 5 things to say to your kids when you don't know what to say.
Hmm.
These kinds of they're tactics, but they're, you, if you recognize, oh, like I don't, I feel so, or do I feel proud of myself? Like
Hmm.
I I mean, I only got on the, I only did one sit up today, but at least I got on the floor and did it. And I love your explanation of that. It's like, no, you
Right.
didn't do just one sit up today.
Right.
You spent week, tell that, like I
Right.
love
Yeah.
that.
No, that's it. It's like you say, like, oh, I did one sit up to, or like people will say, like, for writers, it's like, write one word in your story. It's like sort of like, it's like, well, what am I gonna, what is that? It's like, is that really an accomplishment? It's a huge accomplishment because with the sit up, it's like you woke up and you said, like, the first thing you said was, I'm not gonna do that today. And you're just like, you got over that. And it's like, well, I didn't really have to do that today. And you got over that. And it's like, yeah, well, what's that gonna prove? You got over that. And it's like, I'll do that later. And you got over that. Like, you like remember you see the last what's the last scene of the Matrix where he's like shoo, shoo, right, like the bullets can't hit you, he's bulletproof, right? Like it's like all those things, and then you get down on your butt. It's, oh, the floor's cold, I gotta, right, and finally sit down and you did your one sit up, and then of course what does it turn into? It's like, if I'm down here anyway, I might as well do
I'm
five.
down here anyway.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. I'm down here,
That's the,
and that's the right. So you got, like you had, it was, yes, it was one sit up, but it was like 10, 12 micro victories along the way that you didn't even acknowledge. Well, acknowledge them. Like they matter. And any one of
absolutely.
them could have knocked you out. Any single one of them could have been, I'm not
And
doing this.
and many days they do.
Many days
So
they do.
so that's why I'm saying, like, if you're feeling like some, like, if you writing my journal, sometimes I sit down and say things I'm proud of myself for,
Hmm. Hmm.
just showing up for myself in this scenario, or creating a boundary, that to, being able to be authentic, to say no when I mean no, and yes when I mean yes.
Right.
These are all things that, until you can put them into words, what are you working on in your life?
Right.
So, like, we in my, when with my clients, I always talk about flipping the pancake, and I'm like, flip that pancake, and everybody knows what it means, because we're trying to create a shorthand. It's like, you just said something that was fighting for your limitations, so flip the wording around and say it in a way that's, like I'll never get that job. It's like, or I can't imagine I'm ever going to get that job. It's like, right, maybe the best you can do to make it feel slightly better is flipping the pancake is, I don't really believe I can get that job yet, but I'm working on being able to feel like I can get that job.
Right.
So it's like, it's It's how do you know what the work is? It's always moving in the direction of something that feels slightly better. And who you are is that self-expressed person that's
Like that emergent self-expressed person, right?
emergent. It takes time, and it takes the work before you're in the crisis, the
Mhm.
work before the work.
Right.
Because when you're, that's why, they work with like EMTs and things like there's the practice ahead of time. Like, so when the adrenaline's pumping, you keep a clear head.
Hmm.
This is working on yourself is work,
Yes.
but it's worthy work. It's the only job in town that's really, it's the job. It's the job that gets you all the other jobs. And you don't have to, it, you know, and people say like, I should know all this. Why should you know all this? Or
Right.
like, I feel like what, I shouldn't be leaning on you. And I'm like, we're meant to be in community. We're like, it's the ridiculous idea that somehow emerged in the 1950s of this rugged individualism. It's like none of us are in, like, we need external validation. That
Right.
is not a dirty word. Like, I mean, we to build our identity,
Right.
we need to sometimes model the people that we admire
Right.
and break down the way that they think. And this is what we do when we're working on ourselves and finding that ahead of time. So when you're in, the fiery pit, people say like, after you die, you're gonna, we could go to heaven or hell. I say, honey, we're in hell now. Here we
Right.
are.
Hmm.
Welcome to hell. Here you are,
Can we work? It's funny. The thing, like, I don't know why
and
I flashed
evolve it
on.
into heaven. Like,
I flashed on this thing that you. I can't remember. I who that Orson Welles said. Oh, I love Orson Welles is amazing. But I think the dumbest thing that anybody in the history of humanity has ever said is the four-word phrase, "We're all born alone." I'm like,
totally
literally nobody is born alone. Literally nobody is born alone. Your mother was in the
right,
room. Your father was part of the process. There's probably a midwife, a doctor. Like literally no one's born alone. And where does that? We're all born alone. It's like, oh, well, that's axiomatic. We just have to start with that premise and work. Like that is the dumbest thing that has
right.
ever been said.
There are so many dumb things that have come from 1950 on. Like, when I hear people say tough love,
Mhm.
I'm like, that is the greatest, oxymoron. Like it's just ridiculous. Tough love. The one thing love isn't is tough.
Mhm.
Now, love can call you to things that are difficult, but
Right.
that's not like tough love. There's like, that's what people are saying. Like, you know, that's what
Right.
people are saying.
Well, that's
That's
lazy
not
love.
last.
It's lazy love. I mean, that's like
Oh,
like
I'm gonna.
lazy love.
That's it. I love it.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. It's like,
slacker
like
love. Yeah.
and judge it by like the way that I judge is like, take the person in your life that you really love the most. For many people, it's their kids, where there's just sort of like, I will bend over
Oh,
backwards. I will eat glass. I will walk on fire. I will pull my eyes out with, whatever. Let's go into all the, possible horrible ways you could do. But it's like, I will be there for my kids. And it's like, okay, so there's a person at work and it's like, I'm just telling her to get with it. It's like, oh, okay, so by the standard of generosity by which you judge your actions towards your kids on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being that level of generosity, how generous are you being with a coworker? Two, 2.5. It's like, well, you might want to up your game, right? Like,
there you go.
like if I just simply gave this person the grace to make a mistake, or a moment to sip her coffee, or like a friendly ear or something. Like if I just nudged the generosity up to like 4 or 5, I might get better results. It's quite possible,
Yeah.
right?
And the thing about it is that you know, one of my sayings is a short walk to anywhere you think you can't be. It's like,
Right.
honey, if like somebody else is having a bad day today and it's not convenient for you,
Hmm.
but it is a short walk to you having a bad day and it not being convenient for someone else. Like
That's right.
on the way up, up the ladder, you're stepping on people. Well, it's a short walk to being
Hmm.
on the way down the ladder. It's not, it's just, and on the positive side of that equation, which took me this is where my mind was at for so many years. Like, it's a short walk to anywhere you think you can't be in the positive as well. Like, well, I'll never be a success. It's like, it could be a very short walk. Like,
Absolutely.
watch your language,
Right.
like, why are you being meaner to, would you ever say that to your kid?
Right.
Would you
Right.
ever say that to your best friend?
Yeah, you're never going
Would
to do
you know,
that.
like,
Never going to succeed at that, right? Like
yeah.
we
And
wouldn't, even
if
if
somebody's,
we would very rarely say like talk as nasty to another person as we do to
as
our,
we do,
like you might say like, oh, well, that's going to be a challenge, or I wonder, like you're thinking of quitting your job and whatever, being like going to, you know, I don't know, like singing school, and you have three kids, and just like, you might, that's an interesting thought. But you wouldn't say like you're nothing, you're doomed, yeah, like you just would never speak to another person the way we talk
it's
to ourselves routinely in the kitchen at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
right. And that's what I'm saying, is that you can't change the thoughts you have until you
Right.
become aware of them.
That's right.
And some of these little sayings, like, am I when I'm not sure what I'm doing, I'm like, am I fighting for my limitations here? Am I
Mm,
fighting, like, someone's trying to say something nice to me, and I'm like, you don't, like, also, one of the things you taught me, every time I say the sentence, you don't understand, I know there's a big old lie coming after that.
mm,
You don't
mhm,
understand how things are for me. It's like, like, you don't understand, I can't do that in I can't set a boundary with this person, or I can't. It's like, if I hear myself say you don't understand, it's
mm.
like, especially to you,
You're picking your own locks. You're
um
like, there it
yeah,
is. Like there it is.
yeah,
It's like it's a neon sign over my stuff. My stuff.
right, when you can get, like, even the idea that you can hear yourself say something that you know is untrue,
Hmm.
and you go, oh, caught myself.
Right.
That's the beginning of change.
Right.
Just catching yourself,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
without phrases like fighting for your limitations,
Hmm.
or see, like, or lean into relief, or
Mm.
slightly better. This is the language of change.
Yes.
This is the language, authenticity. Ever, like, find it, when, or when do you feel the most like yourself? I feel
Hmm.
like the most like myself when I'm out you know, in the woods. Some
Yeah.
people feel most themselves when they're on stage. Some people feel most themselves when they're with their kids, whatever it is. But authenticity is to start. How do you start to look for things if
Mhm.
we don't put language to it?
Right.
So
Very
that's
true.
like, that's basically where I kind of wanted to start all this, was like, the, you know, why don't we start listening to our language?
Hmm.
And I'm hoping, with the help of, all the people around me, we're all creating a new language, a
Correct.
language of love, a language of interaction, a language of community, a language of of it's not, every time if I say, oh, I did this thing wrong, like, every one of my friends will say, it's not wrong or right, it's on or
Mhm.
off. We just,
Right.
we change, we correct. So you have something that starts to make its own gravy, as you would say. Like,
Absolutely.
if you belong to a group of people that not only reflect the best in you, but they hold your feet to the fire of, like, you were just mean to yourself right there.
Hmm.
Like, you know, be nice to yourself, and, correct that language. It's it's the opposite of tough love, and it's
Absolutely.
tougher, and
It
it's
is.
tougher to do. Like, somebody saying, that wasn't very nice what you just said
Hmm.
to yourself.
Hmm.
I don't want anybody talking to my friend like that. You're my friend, and
Right.
I don't want to hear
Including
you talk about
you.
yourself.
Including you.
Meaning yourself, like,
Meaning
they're
you.
meaning, like, I don't want you to be talking about you this way.
Right.
You mean too much to me.
That's
And
right.
so this is an amazing thing, is that we we change the people around us, and then the people, change us.
Right.
But it's, the creation of new language starts to create ways of being that we practice
Mm.
before we need the skill.
Absolutely.
And sort of, that's like, is, like, kind of what I feel like tonight was about,
I
or
agree.
it's morning for you. Actually, it's night for
Is
me. You're
morning,
in
yes, Thailand. Yes.
Thailand. Yeah, I can't keep up with where you last week you're in Malaysia. So,
And next week I'll be in
so
China, but
I know. So
weeks.
but this is, you know, I think this is kind of maybe a good place to just
Yeah,
put a pin in it until, we do
I
this
think that's
again or do this
great.
next time.
One thing I was going to ask you as a
Sure.
outro was so anything that you would just go away and say like, oh, I wish I'd said that as you walk down the stairs, the spirit of the stairway, as they French call it.
Yeah, I guess like just a few little things that I want that just two more little things that I tactics that I do with people on the when you because that you reminded me of what do I say on the first session with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
On the first session with somebody, no matter who it is, I I ask them to tell me 10 amazing things about themselves. And whether you're 18 or 80, this is what I get. I mean, I get the face a lot like, uh, and I've only known this person usually for an hour, usually say it at the end of the session, and I can already tell you 10 amazing things about them,
Hmm. Yes.
and they're like, I'm not sure. So that's again, it's a practice. And then when we say it over and over again, they have to start digging. Like, every few sessions we go through that. And I also think it's so important to be the mirror for someone's superpower. People don't know
Mm-hmm.
what their superpower is.
Mm-hmm.
Your superpower uh is bringing ease and joy to people's lives. I said, you meet my brother, he could have 50 projects going on. He will make you feel like you're the only person in the room. He's so kind. Will make you feel like you're the only person in the room, and you will swear that he's on vacation 365 days a year because he's so present. You are so present, and it is a superpower. And
Thank you. Thank you. Deeply.
did you
Deeply.
know that about yourself?
No, I wouldn't have. I didn't know that, and I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have guessed it. No.
Right.
Thank you.
So the idea of mirroring to people things that are, I mean, and that's not your only superpower. We could, if we were in a session and we were going it, talking about it, there are endless superpowers that you have. But just to pick one that I was like, I don't think he knows this about himself,
Hmm.
is
I
that
will.
your presence
I
is
will.
great.
Okay. Well, I have to. Like payback is fair. You know the answer before anybody in the room, and you can articulate it, and you can make people believe it. How's that?
I like it. I mean, that's and it's wild because that quality, I know where it came from us having a very, very difficult mom
Hmm.
that you don't speak unless you can
Back it up.
back it up. So I spent a long time, long
Hmm.
time not speaking until I could completely make the point in a way that people could hear me.
Right.
So it's something that, how can this be a good thing? And now I am so grateful for mom. I have
Hmm.
such gratitude for what she gave me in life.
Hmm. It's
It
like it's like you're in, if you think about it this way, like you're like two actors, and before the play starts, one actor says to the other was like, "What I got for you in scene two, get ready." Just saying, just get ready. I'm not changing the lines, but I'm gonna give you some. I'm gonna give you something to work with, and here it comes. And then you get
here it
out on
comes.
stage, and then all of a sudden it comes at you, and it's like, you're thrown, but like afterwards you're like the audience is rising and applauding, and you're like, that was pretty good. You got me good on that one. We made the show better. He's like, yeah, we'll wait till tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that you don't, you know, you don't know. if something is good or bad until, it like how I can't remember the saying, but it's like, you know, where this, what the ending is where you stop the story. If I had, if I hadn't kept going, like, mom died young, very, passed away younger than most people, and a lot of intensity in our early lives, but it kept me pushing to find the language because I used to get stymied in those situations.
Mm,
And she was, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about, and I think to myself, it made me the life coach that I am. It made me
right.
be able to speak. And so that's the point, is that we get, we get our superpowers from every different direction,
Yes.
every different direction. And everybody has such an influence on us. And someone you're not grateful for today, you may be very grateful for
Mhm.
in hindsight. Those
Absolutely.
situations that you
Right.
look at and said, I don't know how I made it through that.
That's
And
right.
yet it becomes a thing that makes you so resilient
Yes. Agreed.
that you actually, it becomes your superpower. So, that's what I like. I want to be a mirror,
Hmm.
be the mirror that shows people things that they don't know about themselves, because people have such beauty inside of them.
Absolutely. And you can see it when you look
Oh,
at someone and say, "Oh my God, this person's amazing." And then where on earth did they get the impression that, and it's always the most amazing. Like the smartest person is like, "Oh, I think I'm stupid. My dad told me," like the most poised, caring person is like, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I just don't care enough about people. I'm not there." Like like if it was true, if it was accurate, but it's never accurate. Very
but the
rarely.
the thing the thing about it is that also I've had, many people say this to me recently. Um, you know, write that person off. People never change. And I say, people never do anything but change.
True.
Now, change for the better, change for the worse, but nobody stays the same. And the people in my life that I find, they are working on themselves, and they are continually or continuously, which is the correct word, Mark, changing for the better,
Yes.
or
Yes.
both.
Right.
I don't know which is the right
Continuous.
word.
Oh, this is great. Continuous means
I,
it's always going on, continuous, and continually means over and over and over and over again. And both are true.
I both are true, right? And that's the beauty of it, is that both can be true.
Hmm.
That's there's a duality of life that I want to talk about on another episode, like
Or
the idea of the dualistic world we live in. And that's a whole other can of worms, and it's a great one,
mhm.
because we have to live in a world that can be seeming to go crazy, and find and live in our own world, and our own, and stick to our own inner guidance. It's so we got a lot to talk about
Right.
on beyond,
Absolutely. Yes, we
uh,
do. Yes, we do.
and
Yes.
beyond,
And beyond.
so, and beyond,
Yes.
dot dot
Yes.
dot.
I
This was
feel
great.
I'd wanted to make sure you felt complete in that way, and it sounds
And
like
do
you do.
you feel like, do you need anything else to say, or you feel complete too?
I do feel complete. I like the three dots. I think that indicates that we're going to continue, and I think that's important.
Absolutely.
It's important. Yes.
Yes, this has been
Yes.
coming for a long time,
Long time. Yes.
a
Agreed.
long time coming, and it's a good thing.
Yes.
Who better to do a podcast with than your brother or your
Yeah.
sister,
You're what do
right?
you're one of the people in your life that's a cornerstone person. You are a cornerstone person for me, and always will be.
Uh, for me too, right back at you. So anyway, for all you people out there, if this
In
ever does
television
make it,
land. In television
yes,
land.
that's, yeah, we're in the, if you want to comment, like, and subscribe to our channel, and we hope to see you soon.
How we do.
Bye bye.
Bye now.